thing, again, going back to my point of people being stupid, he's not trying to commit a genocide of the Ukrainians. That obviously makes no sense because there is no difference ethnically from Ukrainians and Russians. Obviously, Ukraine wasn't a thing until 1909. Ukraine was created by the Russians. It was, they speak Russian, so it's absolutely ridiculous.
Duh, everybody, duh. Did you see how far she rolled her eyes back into her head? Her eyes almost went, God, you are stupid. Ukraine was just created in 1989. Russia and Ukraine have always been together, just like Putin said. God, you're stupid. You're stupid if you believe otherwise. No Candy. No Candace Owens. No Candace Owens, you beautiful, beautiful black woman. You're stupid. You're stupid. I mean, what is this shit? Lord of the Flies? What is this, Little House on the Prairie? Dante's Ninth Circle of Hell? Jesus fucking Muhammad? Christ on a cracker. So you got Candy Oinkins here, right? Candy Oinkins thinks that Russia was created by the Ukraine. Or no, she thinks that the Ukraine was created by Russia. Or wait, which one? Oh my freaking God. So, Candy Owens, she thinks that Russia created Ukraine. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Russia created the Ukraine? Does fucking countries ever make another country? Oh, well, America, they went ahead and they helped create Brazil. Ukraine was actually begotten, not made. Candy Oinkins, Ukraine was begotten, not made. So Candy Oinkins thinks that Russia created the Ukraine. So does Candy Oinkins, does she think that all you gotta do to make the Ukraine, just kind of throw in some butter and some milk and some flour, some yeast, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, there's Ukraine? It doesn't work like that. Fucking Russian propagandist. What a Russian propagandist dickhead. Jesus Christ. Candy Oinkins, she's actually got it completely backwards. It's the opposite of what Candy thinks. Russia didn't create the Ukraine. The Ukraine created Russia. In Soviet Ukraine, they make Russia. In Soviet Ukraine, they make Russia. Russia was created by the Ukraine in 1800s, or in the 800s. We're going back before 1,000. We're in 2000s. This is before 1,000. In the first goddamn fucking 1,000 years. Was that the first? It's not the millennium, the unillennium. In the 800s, the Kievan Rus began in Kiev, not Moscow, motherfucker. So in the 800s, Moscow's going to be founded way past the 800s. Moscow's going to be founded in 1147, according to a quick Google search, which I read nothing else except for. So 1147. 1147 is when Moscow was founded. Kiev was founded in the 800s. Kiev, Ukraine, was founded before Moscow, fucking Russia. So Kiev was founded before Moscow, therefore the Russians are Ukrainian. The Russians are actually the Ukrainians, not the other way around. The Russians are the Ukrainians. You fucking dumbass motherfuckers. You fucking pricks. Putin is Ukrainian, you dickhead pricks. Even if he's, if he's even Homo sapien. We're not even sure if Putin is Homo sapien. We also got 2 million Ukrainians stuck in Russia who need for the U.S. to invade Russia immediately to go save the Ukrainians. There's 2 million Ukrainians stuck in Russia. Now, Ukraine had concluded a treaty, or actually they're going to partition. They're going to chop Ukraine up. That's what all these invader, capitalist, imperialist fucking invaders, that's all they do. That's all these capitalist, imperialist invaders. They just want to. Poland in 1658, you had Russia on one side, you had Poland and Lithuania on the other side. And yeah, Poland and Lithuania used to be one country. So watch out, Lithuania. Poland's going to try to invade you next. But 1686, so Candy Owens wants to pretend that the Ukraine was just now created in, 1989. No, Candy Owens, it was actually, at the very least, 1658. right? I mean, they founded Kiev in 800s, so we know that the Ukraine has been around since at least the 800s. So we know that Kiev has been around since 800. So that's a pretty, that's pretty far back. How far has the Ukraine lasted? Well, since 800. So just yesterday. No, 800. That was before 1,000. That's how long Kiev has been around. And then those, the Kievan Rus were actually a bunch of Swedish Vikings. So Sweden needs to invade both Ukraine and Russia and take their damn countries back. Come on, Sweden, stand the fuck up. Where are you? So 1658, look at all these dates, Candy Owen. I want to just point out all these dates because Ukraine has been in the history books over and over and over again. So you're going to have the Ukraine in that treaty with Poland and Lithuania and Russia at 1658. We know that the Ukraine was around in the 800s. We know that Ukraine was around in 1932. 4 million Ukrainians are going to get starved to death by Stalin and the Bolshevik communists. So we know that the Ukraine existed in 1932. We know that the Ukraine existed in 1658. We know that the Ukraine existed in the 800s. The Ukrainian War for Independence was 1917 to 1921. So we know that the Ukraine has been around since 1917, since 1932, since 1658, 800. The Ukraine has been around since 800. If the Russians in Ukraine want to be Ukrainian, then let them. Let Bartlett be Bartlett. Let the people who live in the Ukraine be the best Ukrainian people that they know how to be. You goddamn asshole motherfuckers. Anyways, Candy Oinkins. Candy Oinkins truly believes that Russia created the Ukraine. Well, you had fucking Peter the Grape just, rubbed his hands and then poof, there, the Ukraine was. What the fuck is she talking about? Yeah, America was created by the Hessians and Canada was created by the Australians and Kentucky was created by Jupiter. Jesus Christ, you Ukrainian hating motherfucker. You pro-Ukrainian genocidal prick. That land mass and those people who have lived in the Ukraine have been there for thousands of fucking years. Just got there. The Ukraine just got there in 1989. It just got there. And then the history of Ukraine is what? The exact same history that Putin says? You don't question it at all? You're not a single skeptic fucking fiber, not one single skeptical hair in her. Putin said that the Ukraine and Russia used to be one. I'm not even going to question that. Of course that's the case. Why the fuck would you just believe any asshole that says that shit? When Sweden says that the Kievan Rus was was Swedish, they're correct on that. So Sweden would have the same justification that Putin has to go into Ukraine to invade both Russia and Ukraine. Because why? The Kievan Rus, the fucking Swedish Vikings, it was the Swedish Vikings that established the Kievan Rus, which would be Ukraine and Russia. If that's your starting point, 800, Kievan Rus, that's your starting point, fine. That means the Swedish Vikings have a right to invade both of you assholes. So Russia is raping Ukraine right now. Russia tried to rape Ukraine, or did rape Ukraine in 1932. 4 million Ukrainians are going to get starved to death. 4 fucking million Ukrainians. 4 fucking million. So you're going to have World War II where you had 7 million Ukrainians that got killed by the Nazis. But, World War II is 1940s. Fucking Bolsheviks and Stalin had killed 4 million Ukrainians not fucking 10 years before that. So if I'm the Ukrainians, I'm going to hate the goddamn communists. I'm going to hate the fucking Nazis. I'm going to be Ukrainian as a motherfucker. And the Ukrainians are Cossacks. They're the Cossacks, you dumb pieces of shit. God damn, you fucking morons. The Cossacks. The Ukrainians are the Cossacks. It's in their national anthem. They say, God be to, God protect goddamn Ukraine or some shit. And then they say, we're the Cossacks, you Putin-loving motherfuckers. We're the Cossacks. We are not Russians. We're the Cossacks. So people have been living in the Ukraine for thousands of years, before Christ, before Russia was invented or even thunk up. The Skalati were there in the Ukraine, the Huns, the Goths, so the Germans, the Huns, the Skalati, I think Iranians, the Mongolians. There's been a lot of nations that want to plunder and steal and murder and rape and take Ukraine's resources. Look at all that land. Land is a very good investment. They're not making any more land. Putin had said that Ukraine is Lenin's Ukraine. Is that what she's talking about? She just believes whatever Putin says? Since Lenin and the Bolsheviks and, Stalin, I think there was a starvation campaign in the 1920s. Then you had the independence. The independence movement in 1917 to 1920 was the Ukrainian independence movement. So we're going to ignore all of this, right? We're going to pretend all this. We're going to pretend that Lenin was the founder of the Ukraine. I'm happy that the Russian communists helped to defeat the Nazis in the 1940s. But if I'm Ukraine, I'd hate Nazis and communists. I mean, you fucking Nazi motherfuckers just killed 7 million Ukrainians in the 1940s. Fuck you, Nazi motherfuckers. But then you communists, you killed 4 million motherfuckers in 1932. So fuck you, communists. Fuck you, Nazis. Fuck you, communists. Crazy fact, the life expectancy at birth fell to a level as low as 10 years for females and 7 for males in 1933 and plateaued around 25 for females and 15 for males in the period 1941 to 1944. So if you're a Ukrainian back in the 1930s, well, don't expect to live past 20 years old. If you're a Ukrainian in the 1940s, don't expect to live past 30. 25 for females, 15 for males in the 40s, 7 for males, 10 for females in the 1930s. That's the life expectancy from birth. Thanks a lot, communist fucking Nazi fucking pieces of shit. What the fuck is Candy Owens talking about? Russia created the Ukraine. I never knew that, but he said it, so clearly I'm not going to question that shit. He's an authoritarian fascist. Why would I question anything? That authoritarian fascist who's been a terrorist regime since 1999, since his apartment bombing, since motherfucker pretended he pulled some Hitler shit. Motherfucker pulled some Hitler shit. Deshevsky, he says that the Russian character is that you have to do something distinctly unique, something distinctly your own. That's the Russian character. And yet Putin is doing exactly Hitler fucking politics 101. Hitler fucking politics 101. He got the power like Hitler. He does the public speaking thing like fucking Hitler. He's sitting there invading other fucking countries saying he's protecting the, native Russian speakers there just like Hitler did with the Sudetenlands and the Rhineland and on and on and on. But Hitler did it because he needed room, he needed space. Fucking Russia, you got all that fucking, you got a big ass fucking country. Why the fuck do you need to take another country? You have your own country and it's a big ass country. Why do you need to take another fucking country? The Ukraine is not yours. The Ukraine is for the Ukrainians. So what the hell are you talking about, Candy Owens? What the hell are you talking about? In 1957, Khrushchev, he gave Crimea to Ukraine. Why? To help, solidify the relationship between the Russians and the Ukrainians. 1957, check it out, Khrushchev. He gave Crimea, the Russians gave Crimea to the Ukraine. So it was the Ukraines. It was there was Russian speakers, but the Crimea was the Ukraines. But to Candy Owens, was there no Ukraine then? In 1957, who the hell did Khrushchev give Crimea to if it wasn't the Ukraine? Khrushchev just gave Crimea to some Casper the Ghost? When Hitler killed 7 million Ukrainians in the 1940s, was there no Ukraine then when Stalin killed 4 million Ukrainians by starving the living shit out of them in 1932? That's called the Holodomor. Holodomor, which is in their language means the terrorism starvation, because it wasn't just starvation, they terrorized the fuck out of them and made sure they starved to death. Could you imagine starving to death? It's got to be the slowest, most worst, awful death that your body just eats itself alive, and it takes, 3 days, a week? Well, how long does it take to starve to death? And the idea that anytime a country had stole a country hundreds of years ago, Russia, hundreds of years ago, Russia had stole Ukraine. Well, therefore, they used to be one country. We stole fair and square, fucking thousands of years ago. 800s, 1,000 years ago, Russia stole Ukraine, huh? The Swedish Vikings, but the Kievan Rus, if you want to, believe their fucking narrative. So their logic is anytime a country had stole a country hundreds or 1,000 years ago, that oppressed country, even if they liberate themselves, even if they declare independence, even if they say we are our own country, our own people, our own nation state, they're saying that the original oppressor nation, the original capitalist, imperialist, oppressor nation can come back and re-enslave all the people there again while, we tried to rob your fucking country a long time. So the British could try to take India again. The British could try to take, whatever, Falklands. The British could try to take America again. Well, before the British had us, so, they're allowed, this used to be British. So shit, they get to come and take our fucking land. If that's the goddamn standard, Kiev was established hundreds of years before Moscow. So Ukraine created Russia, not the other way around. Ukraine created Russia. The Swedish Vikings created both Ukraine and Russia. So really, Ukraine and Russians are really just Swedes, right? They're just Swedes wearing fucking Russian hats and Ukrainian hats. They're all a bunch of Swedish Vikings. So these fucking Swedish Vikings, they don't know who the hell they are. They don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're already a nation state, and so whoever the fuck you motherfuckers are in that, the Ukraine has been a country ever since I've been alive. According to the Primary Chronicle, the Rus elite and rulers initially consisted of the Varangians from Scandinavia in 882. That's when the Kievan Rus began, 882. The pagan prince Oleg, or Ole, conquered Kiev from Askold and Dur. So this piece of shit, this Swedish Viking named Oleg, he just goes to Kiev, and Askold and Dur were, running Kiev, but Oleg just kills the fuck out of them and takes their fucking city. Oh, you're running Kiev? Pow, pow, now I'm running Kiev. Who the fuck is Askold and Dur? Askold and Dur, are they the original goddamn Ukrainians? The Skalati are the ones, the Neanderthals, the Skalati are like the earliest ones that I know about. And I heard that the Skalati are Iranians. So do we even know who the indigenous people of the Ukraine are? And we should find out who the indigenous people are, and just whoever's got the deepest roots. The people that's in the Ukraine, trace your roots back. Whoever can, identify their roots the farthest back, that's who gets to claim the Ukraine. So this fucking Swedish Viking Oleg kills Askold and Dur and steals Kiev, just steals the city. And that's it. He proclaimed it the capital of the Rus. So it wasn't even the Russians, it was the Rus. Fucking Ruski motherfuckers. No, just Rus. Who are you? Oh, I'm Jonathan. That's like fucking 3 goddamn syllables. I'm the Rus. You just the Rus? Yep. Like the Scots? No, the Rus. Okay. So Sweden can invade Russia using the same logic as Vlad the Mad. Sweden has the same justification. So, was there no Ukraine in 1932, Candy Owens? Was there no Ukraine in 1957? Khrushchev gave Crimea to the Ukraine in 1957. 7 million Ukrainians were killed by Hitler and his. Stalin killed 4 million Ukrainians, starved the shit out of them in 1932. Who did he kill? If it wasn't the Ukrainians, who did he starve and kill? A bunch of Russians? Hitler killed 7 million Russians. Stalin killed 4 million Russians. Khrushchev gave Crimea to the Russians. He is the Russians. Russia, 4 million Ukrainians starved to death. They starved themselves. Like, what the? And then the Ukrainian War for Independence. So the Bolsheviks are supposed to be this, this nice saviors. The communists care about the poor, right? Make sure the poor have plenty of food. So how come they couldn't win the Ukrainians over? That seems like a good political program. But they came in and they said, we're in charge here. Fuck you, fuck your mother, fuck your father. We own you, your family, your home, your land. So the Ukrainians said, fuck you, goddamn Bolshevik communists. Fuck you, Nazis. We're going to create our own thing. So in the modern era, Ukraine has declared its own independence in 1917. It was the Cossacks and shit before them, but it was the Cossacks. The Ukrainians are the Cossacks. It's in their national anthem. La 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 la. Fuck you, Putin. We're the Cossacks. Go check it out. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially. So that landmass and those people have been there for thousands of years before Russia was ever even thunk up, before it was ever invented. The Skalati, the Huns, the Goths, the Mongolians, the Russians, the Lithuanians, the Polish. So I hate that she's just, parroting all these talking points. 1957, you had shit that happened. 1932, you had shit happen. 1940s, 1917. And then 882. You go from the very beginning. From the very fucking beginning. She wants to say everybody else is stupid and ignorant. I don't. Are you an expert of Ukrainian history? You're going to tell everybody that Putin is right. The Ukrainians are not their own people. They don't have their own culture. They don't have their own language. The Ukrainians are not their own individual people. The Ukrainians, there shouldn't even be a country named Ukraine. It's okay if Putin genocides the shit out of the idea of the Ukraine culturally. And hell, maybe that might lead to a literal, Holodomor. Maybe we'll do another Holodomor. Maybe it'll be a fucking, he could be more Nazi, right? He's a capitalist. He's not communist. So that means he could just come in as an authoritarian. He's doing Hitler shit. He came to power like Hitler. He's invading Ukraine like Hitler. There's a bunch of Hitler shit Putin is doing. So Mr. Russia and Mr. Poland and Mr. Lithuania have been trying to get their wretched, dirty-ass hands on Miss Ukraine for a while now. 2 million Ukrainian peasants have settled in Siberia between 1600s and 1917. Some settled, but a lot of Ukrainians are in Siberia, Russia today because Stalin and the dekulakization, the kulaks, they threw the kulaks in the Siberian prisons. The gulags, Jesus fuck, Stalin, motherfucker killed a shit ton of goddamn Russians. And, I guess they were Ukrainians. So to him, it wasn't, they weren't Russians to him. He didn't think of Ukrainians as Russians. The Ukrainians form a national minority in Siberia and the far east of Russia, but they make up a majority in some cities. In 1926, there were nearly 1 million Ukrainians registered in the Cuban Okrug alone. That's 62% of the total population. The Cuban Okrug. I guess that's in Russia today. So at one point, the Ukrainians outnumbered the Russians in one of their own cities. Mr. Goth, Mr. Russia, Mr. Poland, Mr. Lithuania. They just want to get their hands on the Miss Liberty, Miss Ukraine, Miss Freedom and Democracy, Mr. Hun, Mr. Skalati, Mr. Mongolian, Mr. Swedish Vikings, Mr. Oleg, Mr. Cossacks. The Cossacks won out of everybody. They all been trying to, miss Ukraine, that beautiful, pure saint, that gorgeous muse for the ages, that summer's day, that sunshine, that starlight. You ever been to Bahia? Oh, Bahia. 1953, Ukrainian prisoners revolted in Gorlag and Norilsk, and Norilsk and Norilsk and Gorlag. There were prisoners in Russia who revolted. These are cities in Russia, but most of the prisoners were Ukrainian. 1953, Stalin is going to die, and then you had prisoners in 3 prisons who revolted. 70% of the prisoners in those prisons were Ukrainian, and it was the first major revolt in the Gulag system. So there's something that happened in 1953. The Ukrainian prisoners are, revolting in Gorlag and Norilsk and Norilsk. There's independence, autonomy, movement. 1917, I mentioned already. Ukrainian in the Omsk Oblast. You got Ukrainians in Petersburg, St. Petersburg. Ukrainians built fucking Petersburg. Ukrainians live in the Omsk Oblast. There's less than 100,000 Ukrainians today in the Omsk Oblast, but they're the second largest minority in the Omsk Oblast. The third largest minority in the Omsk Oblast is the Kazakhs. In Petersburg, the Ukrainians make up 26 of the population in 1926. Now they're less than 100,000. Why did the Ukrainians make up such a large population of St. Petersburg? Because you had Ivan Mazepa. Ivan Mazepa was carrying out the orders of the, Queen Peter the Great. Okay, Queen Peter, whatever the fuck you want, Queen Peter. He's responsible for sending many Ukrainians to help build St. Petersburg, where they died on a massive scale. So you had Peter the Great, right? That fucking Russian czar. He went into Ukraine, sent them to go build Petersburg, his fucking goddamn city that he's going to name after himself. And just like, the Chinese and the railroads in America come here, work for shit, fall down, and then just, they would just bury you right where you fell and died and just keep on working. Lots of people died in this, the construction of Petersburg. That's Peter the Great. So again, that's Russians. That shit happened. That shit happened in the past. Peter, that's like fucking 1700s. That's a while ago. But he's taking Ukrainians and he's using them for slave labor. And they're dying on a massive scale. Stalin didn't think of the Ukrainians as people. That's the communists. You would think they would think of, people a little bit better than the fucking Nazis, but nope. No, sirree. Bob, hell, if the damn Russians were actually feeding the Ukrainians a little bit better, maybe 7 million of them wouldn't have fucking died when the Nazis came in. 7 fucking million Ukrainians? God damn. Nazis just went around just killing everybody. The last Russian census, you had 94,000 people in the Primorsky Krai. Krai, Primorsky Krai. That's how many people claimed Ukrainian ethnicity in the Primorsky Krai, 94,000. In the 1920s, you had the policy of the de-Cossackization. So not only are they going after the kulaks, but they're also going after the Cossacks. No Cossacks, no kulaks. But they're saying that the Bolsheviks were actually letting the Ukrainians be Ukrainian. They could identify with the Ukrainian culture, language. They opened 700 Ukrainian language schools, and then there was a Ukrainian department in a local university. Russian historians claim that the Cossacks were forced to be Ukrainized, the nationalism, Ukrainian nationalism overran the Cossack nationalism. So they forced the Cossacks to become the Ukrainians. Growing up in Kentucky, people didn't say we're Kentuckians and that's what Kentuckians believe in, except for the governor. He was the only nationalism very much, was in his interest, but there wasn't any nationalism on the streets. Ukrainian historians claim that the Ukrainization in Cuban merely paralleled, so it might be good or bad, but essentially you had a bunch of Ukrainians in Cuban, this city called Cuban, Kuban. In the 1926 census, there were nearly 1 million Ukrainians who were registered in the Cuban okrug alone. That was 62% of the population. It's 1926. Nearly 1 million Ukrainians. And they're 62% of the total. So the majority of the Cuban okrug were Ukrainians. Last but not least, I'm going to give some details about that 1686 peace treaty. Or should I make this into another video? Let's make it into another video, right? It's more sandwiches, more money. Anyways, Putin, get your goddamn fucking, keep your fucking mitts off Miss Ukraine. Get the fuck out of you. The rape of Ukraine carries on. Fuck Putin and the Russians. Fuck them motherfucking pieces of shit. Fucking capitalist invading motherfucking sons of bitches. Ukraine has a right to defend themselves, and anybody else who wants to defend Ukraine has a right to defend them too. So, yeah, all hands on deck. Everybody, get your people to Ukraine. The Ukrainians need us.